Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Just going back to Matt's question on Huckabee's
comments. I know you said that the ambassador speaks for himself, but he was appointed by the president and he does represent the U.S. government in Israel. So is a two-state solution a goal of the U.S. State Department currently?
You know, I'm not going to speak, again, what I said to Matt, and what I'll keep saying is I'm not going to parse the ambassador's remarks. That's not what I'm going to do here, and I'm also not going to speak about the nature of what people say that he was claiming or not claiming. I'm not going to have a speculative conversation about that right now. I would suggest that when it comes to the policy of the United States, that sits with President Donald Trump. And he's just he's like a 15-minute walk away from this building. Call them, and in fact, I think they would have an answer for you, I would think.
Okay,
But
and then,
of course, the president sets a policy, but Secretary of State is in charge of foreign policy. So irrelevant of
yes,
what
I'm not,
ambassador.
yes, I'm not going to begin a conversation speculating based on a statement Ambassador Huckabee may or may not have made. I would suggest when we think about the policy, yes, Secretary Rubio implements President Trump's vision for foreign policy. In speaking on that issue, with everything going on in this world, we are focused clearly on the nature of the things that are in front of us. And I would just suggest calling the White House to make a determination of the Trump policy, the Trump administration's approach in this regard. So Secretary Rubio doesn't make foreign policy. It's his vision and implementation of President Trump's point of view and President Trump's vision. And so that's what Secretary Rubio does, and obviously does it very well. Yes, sir.
Oh, what's the vision that he's implementing here, Tammy?
I'm not going to begin to speculate or go into this. I'm just not going to go here. Ladies, if you want to speak about the National Security Advisor, also call the White House. Yes, sir.
Just to follow up on that issue.
Sure. And this will go ahead.
Sure, but what we have heard from the president is he wants the United States to take over Gaza, which is obviously one of the occupied Palestinian territories and would be part of a future two-state solution. So is that? I mean, you haven't mentioned that, but should we assume that is part of the policy, and therefore that opens the question of what about the West Bank and East Jerusalem? And is that? I mean, Ambassador Huckabee seems to be suggesting there wouldn't be a future Palestinian state in those remaining areas. So we kind of know half of the answer to the question, in that you've said it's President Trump's view and decision. Of he's stated that, although you haven't restated it here about Gaza. So it's just if we could clarify.
Well, there's a focus on Gaza, and for a very good reason. And that's what we're focused on: is the ceasefire, is stopping the carnage, dealing with what's going on in Gaza. After, of course, the horrific events of October 7th, the nature of what's happening with Iran and its death squads of Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis. It's a full plate. And what one does is you start at the beginning and you move forward. We are still working on dealing with either certainly ceasefire and peace for Gaza, and then, of course, the aftermath of that and rebuilding and dealing with what that means. At some point in time, that will hopefully be the major conversation here, right? Is in the aftermath and the rebuilding and how that's happening. And I would expect that to be a conversation that we'll all be engaging in.
So is it still the policy that the US should take control of that territory?
You know,
I
look, what I've heard President Trump say, and what I know the Secretary has always said, is that Hamas can't exist, that we've got to get a ceasefire, that we've got to have new ideas for making sure this doesn't happen again and again and again. I know that the President has called for new ideas to help make that happen. I know that he has had some new ideas and how to do that. We know the region has chimed in with what it believes it can do when it comes to aid and even rebuilding.